Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this broadcast of a conversation about your Kundalini awakening experiences. I'd like to welcome you today, and as I typically do, we're just going to jump right into things. For those of you that have had the Kundalini come upon them spontaneously, your whole life has been lived to prepare you for this moment. It is not an accident that you have the parents that you have, the family that you have, and especially it is not an accident that you've had the experiences as a kid that you've had. In many ways, a Kundalini person's life can be somewhat difficult. Yes, a person can be born with exceptional gifts. Somebody can be exceptionally brilliant at music or mathematics or science, or maybe have physical prowess, are able to do sports very, very well. And by that I mean kind of far and away from the normal person or a person who's not within an awakening equation. A person can have exceptional beauty, but maybe not as a child. Maybe it's only something that they would have as they grow older. In many ways, the Kundalini can be seen within an individual, but only typically by a Kundalini awakening person. Within the experience of the life leading up to a Kundalini awakening, a person really needs to understand that it will typically not be easy. If you remember that, and I know I've covered some of this before in previous shows, but I'm feeling compelled to talk with you again about it today. Oh, and I must say that we are on the brink of leaving for our Kundalini ayahuasca ceremonies into Peru, and I'm going to need to shorten this program to 1 hour. But this 1 hour will also include some of the questions, and I am joined with Santara today, and a number of other people who are also going on the journey. And so Santara will, of course, be making her announcements, and she will be also handling the questions. And I'd like to welcome all the new guests that we have here in the chat room as well, and people listening on their phones or the computers. So, as we begin, if you've heard the curse, may you experience all your karma in one lifetime. This is the ancient Chinese curse that the person who maybe started that curse knowing full well that if you get to face all your karma in one lifetime, it's going to be a very, very, very difficult life. Kundalini has parts of that curse involved in it. It's not all your karma that you get to have in the one life. It's just the parts of it that you will need to balance in order to have the Kundalini come in. You may have another Kundalini life, and that exceptional, rapid karmic balancing may be given to the Kundalini awakening person in a number of lives. But for this life, it can be tremendous. Anywhere from the different abusive aspects as a child and on up through into adulthood, the different experiences that a person will have can be very strong, very powerful. And it's going to be very important for a person who somehow, through the grace of Kundalini, I feel, that they come into the knowledge that, oh my gosh, this that I'm having right now is Kundalini. Oh, okay. If you can begin to look back into your lifetime and to begin to look at the difficulties in a different way, as a way of rapid refinement to bring you into the Kundalini at the age that you're having it right now. And I don't care if you're having it at 18 or at 80. The age that you're having it right now is the age that you were intended to have it. The Kundalini does not make mistakes, and it is not bound by temporal logistics or time-based logistics. It's not bound by that. It can go back, it can go forward. It can make the adjustments within your body, within yourself, as it needs to. But before I go even further, I'd like to talk with Vincent or Mary Jean and make sure that the sound is coming through okay. So if Mary Jean or Vincent in the chat room could let me know if the sound is coming through, I would appreciate it. And I'll see you when you start typing. It's important that I don't just like close my eyes and stream this consciousness to a computer screen. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mary Jean. Thank you very much. Okay, continuing forward. I would suggest that you begin to look at your life and the things that have happened to you in your life. What type of difficulties have come to you without regard to your feelings, without regard to your maturation level? I mean, very, very bad things can happen to extremely innocent children. What types of difficulties did you encounter up to the point where your Kundalini activated within you? Have a look at that and look at where you need to begin to modify how your emotional body is perceiving these refinements. Were you attacked? I remember when I was 5 years old, I had my bike. I had a Western Flyer, and I took that little Western Flyer with my training wheels, and I took it to the next block, and I was playing with that bike, I had it parked, and I saw this man running down the neighborhood street, and he ran right at me, and he stopped at me, and he says, "Hey kid, I need your bike. You're gonna have to give me your bike." And he grabbed my bike and he took it. And very soon after, the policeman showed up and said, "Have you seen a man? I think he had hospital clothes on or something." And I said, "Yeah, he took my bike." And the police said, "Don't worry, we'll get your bike back." That was my main concern. Not that I could have been killed or whatever, but the guy took my bike. Anyway, so he took my bike, and of course the policeman came back and he delivered my bike, and the man was apprehended and all of this stuff. But I used that as a way of illustrating a perhaps a karmic equation that my Kundalini was giving me at that time. And as I remember, when I was 5, 6 years old, I was having a lot of Kundalini activity. I just didn't know what it was. It was phenomena that I had learned by that time not to tell my parents about. But it was definitely phenomena, and this is when I started astral projecting as well. When I was shown how to astral project by what we would otherwise know as elves. 6 of them showed me how to astral project, kind of helped pull me out of my body, and then showed me how to fly around the room, and then out of the room. And so this type of a scenario can occur for a person within an early Kundalini awakening equation, and it can begin to sculpt the person in very specific ways. I've never had a bad feeling about this man that took my bike. I was surprised. I felt, I felt okay with him taking it. He said he'd give it back, so I believed him. And at that age, I wasn't really very judgmental in how people, if they said they were going to do something, then I would believe them. And so I would recommend that you look back into your past, even to the 5 and 6 year old person that you once were, and look at some of the things that may have happened to you that were traumatizing, even some of the extremely traumatizing things. And I don't want to go into detail with that, but everything from the physical abuse, the sexual abuse, the emotional abuse, those different things. Wow, what was that? What was that? I think I better just a second there. I got to get rid of that sound. Boom. Okay. Have a look at those areas in your life. what happened to you? And now that you have the Kundalini and you're looking back at these areas in your life, what happened to you and how did they fit into your Kundalini karmic equation? And begin to become okay with it to the degree that you can. If it's a level of abuse that is so severe that you can't even go there, well, just take it really, really, really slow. And talk with your Kundalini. And when I say talk with your Kundalini, I really mean it. I mean, say, Kundalini in me, how would you help me to receive this yourself within me and reduce the level of trauma that I felt as the man took my bike, or even though I wasn't feeling a lot of trauma, how does that fit in, Kundalini in me, to my Kundalini karmic equation? And see what she brings to you, not in words. See what kind of a feeling, see what kind of an informational download that you might suddenly get into your head. See what happens to you. And as we spoke last week we spoke with Brooke about having Kundalini come immediately into her body and giving her a healing, but not a complete healing, but a significant partial healing for something that she was struggling with at that moment. So can the Kundalini do this with you with regards to any questions you may have about your karma and the karma that led us, into our awakening events. And so I'd really like to suggest you do this just to begin to restore some cognitive balance that a person may have coming out of a Kundalini lifetime and reviewing their life and going, oh my God, I had such a terrible, horrible lifetime up to this point. And then to begin to initiate those forgivenesses and then begin to initiate a level of knowledge and understanding. And as I've said previously in other shows, information is power within your Kundalini equation. And I mean personal information. I'm not talking about who's going to win the presidential election in whatever country you're in. I'm talking about you and the reason why certain things may have happened to you. And it doesn't mean that everything that happened to you as a child you had done to another kid. That's not the point at all. What the point is to accelerate the karma to a degree that a person can burn loads of karma in a very short period of time, which would be one life, which takes us right back to that Chinese curse. And so if a person had the different levels of abuse I was discussing as a child, you don't need to think that you were doing that to another person in another life. That I'm not saying that it's impossible. I'm not saying that that's impossible, but I am saying that the Kundalini can combine specific karmic events that you will pay for, as Edgar Casey said, but in every jot and tittle you will pay for that. And it can arrange very, very specific sequences and activities in your experience of life that will govern the amount of karma that you're burning. And so as you look back on your life now, it's very important, I think, for you to begin to find some of that inner balance. Some of you may have been depressed for the last decade. Some of you may have been depressed for the last, 2 decades or more because of the level of difficulty that you had in your childhood. This was my case when the body Kundalini awakened when I was 30. I had been depressed for over a decade. What I think, from my experience working in rural medical situations, I would have been classified as clinically depressed and given some sort of a tranquilizer to cover up the symptoms of the depression. Maybe that's been happening to you. You who are listening to this, listening on your phone or your computer or in the chat room or in the archives. Maybe that happened to you, but with the Kundalini, it no longer needs to be the case. The Kundalini eradicated my depression almost immediately. And that depression that you've been feeling throughout your life, if you have indeed been feeling that, that can also be a karmic balancing that is in place. And so really, really, really look at the non-accidental aspects of what has happened to you since you were born, all the way up until the Kundalini began to express itself through you. Very important for you to find balance in those pastime events within this life that can still give you grief. And yes, a person can still have some past life traumas sticking to them as well, and the Kundalini will also work on those. And so it's very important for you to begin to look in the mirror of who you are and who you have been and how you are and how you have been, and begin to find some sense to it. Kundalini has brought this to you. You don't get to have Kundalini without having some karmic refinement. I'll say that again. You don't get to have Kundalini come to you without having some karmic refinement. And if you're not having the karmic refinement before the Kundalini comes, you're certainly going to have it while it's there. None of it is accidental. Do you have any? I would like to introduce my co-host. You've heard her many, many times. She has flown 7,000 miles across the Atlantic, across the great North American continent, landing in San Francisco, and here she is, Santara Kundalini. Here we are. Hello, everyone.
Hi, everybody. Good to be here. I'm going to begin, as I always do, by giving you the address you can go to if you want to make a donation. It's www.chrism-kundalini.blogspot.com, and there is a donate button there, and just follow the instructions. And thank you to everybody who has made a donation in the past and those of you who will in the future. As I always say, there's no need to actually feel under pressure to make a donation, but if you're in a position to do so and you want to do so, that's the address you can go to, www.chrism-kundalini.blogspot.com.
So I got to ask you, Amelia, with regards to childhood karma, things of that nature, what when you look back on your childhood, how has that kind of manifested for you when you look at it?
I suppose I see it in two sections, my childhood, you know. The early part of my childhood, I remember it was quite a religious childhood, and I had an amazing relationship with God. And I know that I had a lot of Kundalini stuff going on. I mean, devotion. It was just wonderful. And then at some stage, I was telling Rosemary this the other day, I think, at some stage, maybe around, now I do all the usual things that happened as well, but at some stage around, I think it was maybe 10 or 11, everything changed. I had this experience of being told, or an understanding that I could leave if I wanted to, the world. I mean, I wasn't sick or anything.
You could just die.
I could just go to God. There was just, like, I had a choice. I don't know how that was because I wasn't unwell. But I remember at the time thinking that I couldn't do it because my mother and father would be devastated. And everything changed after that. It's really, I mean, I didn't know that at the time, but when I look back, that's when it all began to go wrong. And I started having these awful nightmares of spiders chasing me.
Oh, spiders chasing you.
Yeah.
So in other words, God came to you instead of you going to God.
Did I know? Like all the, the steep religious connection, all of that. I also began to become aware of the church, and there were things I didn't like. Even when I was very young, I began to understand that the dogma was different to my experience. And then I had all the nightmares and all that kind of thing, mostly spiders. I'm known for spider dreams in my house. And a terrible fear of death, and a lot of anxiety, and it was like that right through into my teenage years. Yeah.
Did you find that it influenced your emotional body as well?
What I know now, looking back, is, and there was also other stuff. Yes, it did, of course. But what I now know, looking back, is I can see how my ego was conditioned by a lot of these things. And so I have I have a better understanding now through the safeties and through all the different things of, how that was laid down and my patterns and my emotional responses to things. So, it was really hard and then, as I got older and went into adulthood, there were very specific karmic things that happened to me that I'm not going to share. But,
please!
No, but I didn't have an abusive childhood.
Okay.
I had certainly a lot of invalidation, because when I was younger, I wanted to tell my mother things and I wasn't allowed to talk about anything. So there was a lot of that, and there was a lot of emotional. It was difficult,
Yeah. And how did that change after you knew that your Kundalini had come up? Once the Kundalini came up, how did you kind of restructure your memory of your childhood and how that may have been influenced by the Kundalini itself?
Well, I suppose that took a while, Chrism, because it wasn't something that came to me straight away. Like, I had from 1999 until 2006, I had intense, really, really severe, I'm not going to say it was a frag, but it was huge change in my life. It was just one thing after another, people dying, all kinds of things. And then the Kundalini, and there was a lot of, I don't know if I'm even answering your question now, but there was a lot of stuff began to happen around my childhood, and I had to look at my family of origin, and I had to do a lot of forgiveness and a lot of that sort of thing before the Kundalini awakened. There was a lot of activation going on, but I hadn't a clue. And then after the Kundalini awakened, well, you see, when the Kundalini awakened, it was like I was back in my child. I mean, I knew about God again, and I knew that this had been, I was one with God. We've talked about this before. And then, so I knew all my fear went, I never had fear of death after that experience. I still don't, which is incredible because I had up until that point of time. I was terrified. What was your question? It was about karma. Yeah, so about my childhood. So I had a lot of stuff. The Kundalini had been working me with this for a while. And then, so I had forgiven a lot of things that had occurred. And I began to see clearer. And I have to tell you, I'm always saying at the safeties, when you really do the safeties and when you really do the forgivenesses and the recapitulation, you start doing recapitulation, which I began to do in a conscious way, through you directing me to. When I started to do that, because Kundalini moved me into areas where I really had to work on aspects of my childhood. So, does that answer your question?
It does. You did very well. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah. And there's another type of a childhood lifetime that can come in that is totally karmically motivated too. And today we are joined by Her Holiness, the Mother Superior of the world, of the cosmos, Her Holiness Rosemary Goliath. And Rosemary, my understanding is that as you're the second oldest child of 6, and all girls. And I'm going to go ahead and let you tell the story, but you were motivated into leadership positions earlier in life simply because I guess those shoes needed to be filled. Is that right?
Yes, that's interesting because I was thinking of that a few minutes ago, how service in my family, it was not outside, but there were 6 of us in our family, and it was a lot for my mother to do, and my dad was not really helpful or didn't seem responsible. And I actually, I was told in my adult life that I had dethroned my older sister as the oldest because I did that.
Dethroned.
Yeah, and I was taller than her, and people always thought I was oldest. So that, and my grandmother, this is when I was about 3, I think, she had a gallbladder surgery. And she lived with us and was helping our mother with us, and then had to leave when there became more of us and there wasn't room for her. But she had this gallbladder and she was in bed, and she would tell everybody about me, and this really reinforces some of those habits that you have. She's told everybody I was her little angel, or I was her nurse. I was her little nurse. And I remember seeing her there and not able to get up and around. And I said, Grandma, what could I do for you? And I don't know whether she told me or I said, and I got her a glass of water. And I remember when she moved that it was a little hard for me just for her to be gone, and she had to live with her son, and we would go visit her there. And I remember earlier years too in the family just getting into trouble. And
now how do you see that within your current Kundalini activation period? How do you see that, and how does that begin to drive you into what occurred to you when you were 15 and you joined the convent?
Well, this grandma also taught us how to pray. And her room was with us. There were at least 4 of us by then, and we all were quiet till we said our prayers at night. And she was of service too, provided some in a different way in the church in her prayer. So when I was 15, and I went to a Catholic school also and had that nurtured there, but I heard a speaker come who said about the struggle, if you were having a struggle with this and denying that, and it wouldn't be you, that was a sign of God's voice there for you, that you don't talk to nothing, I was responding, and I said, oh my goodness, she's talking to me. And that was not my plan, and I didn't even tell anybody for 2.5 more years, but it was there in my heart, and I was listening. And just when the right time came, I had 10 days before my classmates were received into this very initial stage in their senior year. And so I went to the religion teacher and told her I thought God wanted me to be a nun. And I knew that if I didn't act on that then, I wouldn't ever do it.
And so this is great, Rosemary. Thank you, Centaur and Rosemary. And it really leads us because, Rosemary's Kundalini activated right now. Centaur is in the awakening stage. And it's very, very interesting to see how the Kundalini begins to align us in different ways with different karmas. It's very important that you do not compare your equation with somebody else's. You can't come up to me and say, oh, geez, how come my equation is so hard and Rosemary's, all she had to do was join a church. Not minimizing that, Rosemary. You cannot do comparisons. You cannot do karmic competitions with each other. You are as unique as a snowflake. Every snowflake that comes from the sky is a unique and individual snowflake. No two are alike, and no two individuals are alike either, and therefore no two sets of karma are alike. And so, even though Rosemary had her experiences, I had mine, Amelia had hers, in no way are they comparable, and yet they came to a very similar conclusion with regards to Kundalini. The Kundalini is that joiner, that force that creates oneness within its own expressive diversity. Oneness within diversity. The two that are one and the one that is two is the ancient equation. Very important for you to understand this. And because we have an hour show, ding, 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 it is time for the question and answer period.
Okay. I just want to say the common thing I have with Rosemary is I also have 5 sisters. I'm the eldest of 6. So,
There you go.
Okay, so this is interesting because it's kind of connected. I'll begin. It's slightly long. I have not had the spinal sweep yet, but I know that I have been active since childhood. I do think that it was waiting for me to find a teacher and the groups until my loneliness disappeared. So my tailbone has been broken many times since childhood. What can I do besides the safeties so that it won't be sore all the time? And why is it so sore, although I am surrendering to the pain?
Well, first of all, I want to give you my condolences for having that tailbone broken. It is not pleasant. If any of us have fallen hard on our tailbone, you know exactly what I'm talking about, because I have fallen on that tailbone off of a forklift. Okay, so if you've broken your tailbone in many places, yeah, that could very easily initiate a Kundalini response in a person. And once again, you know, that would not be an accidental thing. That would be a very, very strong karmic development within a person. And so that would and could, and I won't say it does it to everyone. Okay, I'm not going to be absolutist with this, but I will say that it's one of the common mechanisms of Kundalini awakening that uses an assaultive type of karmic approach upon the physical body, i.e., the tailbone. Well, the reason why it's hurting all the time, and it's fairly obvious, is because you've broken it so many times. You've broken the housing that the dormant Kundalini is in, and so you basically opened the door in whatever way the door was opened for you. But as it comes up to you, yeah, you're not going to be able to avoid the pain unless you start talking to the Kundalini, start talking to it like you would to another person, like an elder sister or a mother. You need to really begin to have that conversation with the Kundalini, and just as other people have, once you got to come 50% of the way. You can't be a couch potato. You can't be sitting on that tailbone all the time, 24/7, and expect it not to hurt. Okay? You got to be out and about. You got to be exercising. You got to be doing what you need to do in order to have balance within the whole body, not just the tailbone. You balance the whole, and then, you know, the parts of the whole can also come into balance. So with regards to you know, the Kundalini within you, yeah, that would have been a very, very, very strong activated sequence for you. As far as the pain goes, once again, I'll tell you to start talking to the Kundalini. Ask her to help you with the pain. If you're trying to cover it up with pain meds or things of that nature, you may not want to do that. You may, if you can, if it's not so painful that you can't stop taking the pain medications, see if you can hold back on them, and then talk to the Kundalini about that. She can take the pain away instantly. I mean instantly. No waiting. Okay. And the other thing is that you know when you break the tailbone so many times, you're going to unleash a torrent of karmic activity within you. And I've seen that happen before. I've seen it with devastating results upon the life of the person. And so if that has happened to you as well, I once again, I want to give you my sympathies. But I also want you to know that it's not accidental, that this is meant to happen. You are balancing karma within the pain. Even having the pain is a form of karmic balancing. Just as having depression, Chris, I'm having depression for 20 years, that also is a karmic pain as well. And so physical pain, emotional pain, these types of painful experiences are karmic expressions upon the being of the person, upon the five-body being that the person is. And so you want to look at that within a Kundalini context as a signature of karmic refinement in action. So in a way, you're being shown that karmic is happening. Your karma is being balanced right now as you experience the pain. Okay? And I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next question.
Next question is connected as well. Is it karmic reasons that I was born in the country I was born in when I know I don't belong here?
Yes, it is indeed a karmic reason. How do I say this? Sometimes bodies are not as easy to find as you might think. You know, families have certain karmas, countries have certain karmas, cities have certain karmas, and the people that make up those cities and countries have very specific levels of karma coming in and through them. To find a couple of parents that have the right physical signature that allows a Kundalini awakening child to be born may not be so accessible. And also, you may have past life karma to that country. And that being past life karma, that would, you may have propelled yourself out of that country, or that may be a task for you to do in this lifetime. Okay, it's not the easiest thing. This is why a Kundalini person is so very precious. Not only for the service that they can give to humanity and the assistance they can give into bringing a greater level of divine light and divine love and vibration onto this world, but also, you know, for, you know, to have that expression of divinity all the time. So it takes a very special kind of body, and it takes a very special kind of DNA to come together to form that body. And you know, Amelia has that, Rosemary has that, and you have this as well. And know this and understand this. And if you're not going to, typically people that have Kundalini won't feel like they belong anywhere. Pick a country, you won't feel like you belong to it. You know, pick a wilderness area, and you might feel like you belong there. Okay, so we as Kundalini people, I mean, constantly I have students come up to me constantly saying, "Oh, Chrism, I so don't know why I'm doing this. I don't belong to this world. I don't belong here working with you. I don't belong anywhere." And then they say, "What should I do?" And I say, well, you need to figure out how to help yourself find a level of belonging. And, you know, typically, you know, the root of that issue is ego. The ego wants to be pleased. The ego wants comfort. She wants complacency. It wants to feel like it's in control. And if the Kundalini's coming up and taking over control from the ego, nowhere you live are you going to feel like you belong. Nowhere. No country, no city, no planet, okay? You won't feel like you belong in the physical plane because part of you isn't there anymore. You're being controlled by the Kundalini, which isn't confined to the physical plane, you see. So it's very important for you to understand that and to realize that that Kundalini symptom of not feeling like you belong anywhere is indeed a symptom. And so you need to begin to have some ego control and realize that it's not about you feeling like you're in control or that you belong. It's more about you acclimating yourself to the Kundalini and making yourself realize that you belong everywhere. There is no place that you do not belong. And so you need to take yourself out of that little thumbtack of an environment that your ego's been operating and calling the world, and you need to expand yourself into the multiverse. Understand that you have become unlimited as you live within a limited world. And you need to really work with that lack of limitation and open yourself to the expanded awareness and the ever-expanding awareness that the Kundalini brings to a person. Over.
Okay, next question. Chrism, can you speak, please, about being awakened after meeting a person that has already been awakened? Are there bonds or feelings or do's and don'ts that tie the involved people after an event like that? And what if they are a male or female? Does that make a difference?
Well, a lot of it's going to make a difference. Are you having a relationship with the person? Okay. Are you in a tantric affair with the person? I mean, there are so many variables that you're not mentioning inside of your question. But to answer the question, as you coming in the presence of an awakened person, and that person's Kundalini begins to awaken yours or to activate yours, what you want to do is start practicing the safety protocols, really. As Amelia mentioned earlier in the program, the safety protocols are there for Kundalini people, or people who want to be Kundalini people. Okay? That is what the safeties are for, and so this person should be practicing the safeties twice a day. And realizing that it is not the individual that had the Kundalini. It's the Kundalini that she should be paying attention to now. Once the Kundalini comes up, I don't care if you broke your tailbone or you went to Sri Yamanagata, and I'm just making up Yamanagata. I don't know who that is. Sri Yamanagata. It's not about that anymore. It's about Kundalini now. Your relationship is now with the Kundalini. That's the most important relationship you have in your life for the rest of your life and the rest of the lives to come. Over.
Okay, thank you, Chrism. Now, what is aura? Is aura or the halo the same thing?
No. The aura, thank you. The aura is not the same as the halo. The halo, or the corona, which is another word for the halo, the corona, C-O-R-O-N-A, is the tightly compacted light, the dense form of light. And I know that sounds very, very contradictory, but there's a density of light around the person's head. And if you looked at some of the videos, like there are many chakras on the top of the head. Okay, and when these are expressing in a great volume of expression, a level of light is emitted from each chakra that forms a dense sphere of light around the head. Sometimes you can perceive it. Most times it's other people that will perceive it around you. This corona is not the aura, but it is like a central point of the aura. If you look at the aura as an oval of light around you, you can see the corona as a point of light within that light that is brighter than the aura. The halo, or the corona, is extremely bright. It is as a crown, a lit up crown like a king or a queen would wear, and it is easily the animals see it all the time. They'll look at it all the time. The babies will look at it all the time. People who have different what we would call disabilities, which I don't really believe are disabilities, but they can also see it. They can also see it, and they'll look at and they'll smile at you as you walk past them, and they'll kind of tip their head at you like, "Hey, nicely done," and so on and so forth. And that corona is what they're seeing, that halo of light.
And is the aura and the halo related to spirituality?
Definitely related to spirituality. Look at any picture of Buddha or Christ or Mary or you choose the holy deity. That corona, that halo, is always depicted as a sign of divine contact upon the flesh. So you betcha it is extreme in its spiritual expression. It is extreme its level of spiritual effect upon the person.
And does the aura indicate any illness, as in, Kirlian photography?
Kirlian. Yeah. Kirlian photography, I mean, people, they're trying to bring spirituality into a scientific milieu, and it doesn't always work. Kirlian photography doesn't necessarily photograph anything that is identifiable as Kundalini, I mean, light waves coming off of a person. As far as showing illness, if you're able to look with Kundalini eyes at a person's aura and you can see certain things floating around in their aura, you see pictures. You see pictures, and then if you look at the source of the aura, really is the chakra system. So there are 7 layers to an aura, okay, and those layers will reflect what frequency of color the chakra is emitting at that time, and it is constantly changing. So for a person to come and just like, oh, Kristen, I see your aura is just this wonderful light, and it's red, and it's green, and it's just sparkling, and oh my gosh. And I'm just going to look at them and say, thank you so much, but the aura is constantly changing. I don't know what you're seeing, but if it's not changing, it's not my aura. The aura doesn't freeze frame itself, so a psychic can look at you. With every thought, with every heartbeat, your aura is pulsing and changing. It is never staying the same, okay, ever. And it's also reflective of your thoughts and your emotional status. No. Lack of an aura can show impending death. Okay, the lack of an aura can show that a person is going to be jerked out of their body in a short time. So that's an important quality for people to realize. So if you get onto an elevator and nobody in that elevator has an aura, you step out of that elevator. You say, oh my gosh, this is my floor after all.
Okay.
Okay.
I never do that. Okay. Not that I really don't see auras anyway, but yeah. Okay, well, Chrism, that's the end of the questions, but I want to give you all that website address again if you would like to make a donation. It's www.kundalini.blogspot.com. And again, thank you all very much. And that's it from me, Chrism.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. I'm not going to end the show quite yet. We have about 10 minutes to go. And so I really, I would like to encourage anybody on the chat room right now. We have 10 folks on the chat room. So anybody that is typing a question, I want to encourage you to ask that question, and I'll do my best to answer it in the time that we have remaining. Some things I would like to show gratitude for right now. I'd like to show gratitude for Amelia Santara for all the work that she does on the groups, the Facebook groups, and managing, the questions and the answer, and the being just the tremendous co-host that she is. Many thanks, and much gratitude to you. I'd also like to thank Rosemary Goliath for the work and the outreach. She is an extremely able and effective Kundalini arbiter, and she is also, along with Eileen Laurel, an ambassador of the Kundalini to the Minnesota and actually everywhere she goes. This woman can just walk right up to a person, stand next to them, and start talking with them, and it just seems like the most natural thing in the world. These two people have never met before, and yet, there they are just talking about this, talking about that. And I just want to give my gratitude to Rosemary. She's very organized. She keeps me on my toes. She grounds the guru, and she says, "Oh, Kristen, we need to talk about finances." Finances for the Minnesota, for the seminars that we're going to be doing in Minnesota. We will be doing a seminar in Minnesota for those of you in that area of the United States. Also, we'll be doing, we're planning a Berlin Kundalini Awakening seminar. So for those of you in Europe, I strongly encourage you to get a hold of Manisha on Facebook. Her name is Maneesha, Maneesha, twice, and send her a private email and see, to get a level of interest that she is. That she's one of the main planners, and so is another woman named Hannah. And so that will be happening September 3rd of 2016, as if all goes well. And so I would look forward to seeing you, and to after you receive 16 hours of information, giving you a Kundalini activation. But it is not something that you must have. You can come to the seminar and not take the Shaktipat. It's perfectly all right to just start to collect information about what can happen, what it is, what it isn't, and things of that nature. And so I see that that nobody on the chat group has a question. And so I will just continue along the lines right now. A lot of information about entity interaction on the groups at this moment, and I've had some private emails concerning that, so I want to cover some of that right now. Entities, discarnate entities, are what we'll call ghosts or spirits that do not have another body. There's karma to be burned. There's karma to be burned outside of the body as well. So, for instance, if you've been a very, very bad person in this life, you're going to go into a certain level of karmic refinement before you can have a body again. You don't get to just jump right back into a body, and if you do, if it is for you that you get to go right back into a body, maybe you're going to be that starving child in Africa that a vulture is looking at very provocatively. Okay, maybe that's the karma that you have in store for you, and maybe you know about that. Maybe you don't want to do that, and so you stay this wandering spirit, this hungry ghost, and you look for Kundalini people to latch on to, and you look for that experience, and you'll latch onto a Kundalini person, and typically a person that doesn't want to face their karma is somebody has already been corrupt. And that is a corruption. And I have Mary Jean's asking a question. I've never had any entity interaction. Why is that? Well, it doesn't happen to everybody. 40% of the people won't have one. And that could be a karmic thing too, Mary Jean. And it could also be a level of how deeply you're able to go into the Kundalini. You need to look at your environment. Is it safe for you to have the Kundalini in an expressive format all the time? Is it safe for that? And if it's not safe for that, maybe the Kundalini won't allow that to occur quite yet until it is safe, and then, boom, you might start having those entity interactions. And don't think that you're missing anything fun. It is not fun. Anybody. It is not fun to have, to have that. The entity interactions can be very, very, very challenging. And Mary Jean responds, I've had enough problems without entities. Well, okay. Maybe that's something for the future for you, my dear. And for those of you that are having the entity, the discarnate entity, the hungry ghosts, or the entities that are coming to you and screaming or cussing at you in your ear, telling you to commit suicide, things of that nature, you just ignore them. I don't care how loud they get. And what you can do, and this has been helpful for people, is you can invoke Krisam Kundalini, or you can take my picture and just stare at it. And that's enough. They all know who I am. They all know the Kundalini in me. And they all know what I say about them. They all know, because I'm one of the few people that are giving this level of truth into society. So you use that picture, you use that name, and you don't do this. Don't go, in the name of Krisam, be gone. No. All you do is you just say the name over and over as they're yelling and screaming at you telepathically in your ear. You just say Krisam Kundalini. They know who I am. And they'll either leave or they'll just shut up. Okay. Typically, the Kundalini will allow certain levels of entity infestation to occur in order for you to begin to develop levels of an understanding that supernatural forces do exist in this world. You are now supernatural. As you have Kundalini, you have crossed into the threshold of what it is to begin to live within a supernatural environment, because that supernatural environment is going to come to you. It's not going to wait for you to go to it. It'll come right into your head. It'll go into a transpersonal chakra in the top of your head, and there you are. You have telepathic communication with hungry ghosts or entities that are trying so very, very hard to corrupt your nature. And I know I get a lot of flack from people. Oh, but it's my twin flame. Did I say that sarcastically? Oh my gosh. It's because I intended to say that sarcastically. There is no entity that is your twin flame. It can tell you that it's your twin flame, but entities lie. L-I-E. They lie all the time. They don't have to tell the truth. And forget about these little things that you learn of when you're 7 or 8 years old. It's like, well, if you say it a certain way, then they have to tell you the truth. Well, they don't have to tell you the truth at all. They can simply sit there in your head and lie and lie and lie and lie to you, and try to corrupt you and try to manipulate you all day long, all night long. I've had people come here to the ashram festooned with entities. And we go out and we do into the wilderness and we do, certain levels of entity control. But the Kundalini will allow you to have these entities simply to give you an understanding that you are now part of a greater expanded universe, far more than you were before. Far more than you were before. And you heard earlier in the show, you heard Santara talk about being chased by spiders. Well, spiders are not entities. Snakes or serpents are not entities, typically. These are manifestations of the Kundalini grace upon you. So a spider, a serpent, a tiger, a panther, a jaguar, a lion, a bear, a huge dog with red eyes. These are all manifestations of Shakti Kundalini. The crone may also be a manifestation of the Shakti Kundalini. The little girl, about 13, 14 years old, dancing around in a purple dress, is also a manifestation of the Kundalini. So these manifestations, they exist as well, and they'll be side by side with the entity manifestation. And so there you're being given a lesson in discernment. What it is to discern between that which is Kundalini and that which isn't. And the one thing that I'm going to give you a clue on is look at the level of corruption. Look at what it wants you to do to other people or to yourself. Is it telling you, it's like, oh gosh, Chrism, you really don't fit in here. And I know, they'll come back at you very compassionately. I know you don't feel like you fit in anywhere, Chrism. Oh, I know, it's so terrible there. Maybe you should just end it all. Oh, look, there's some rat poison on the counter. Hey, I know it might taste bad at first, but hey, it won't taste bad for long. This is what they will do. Or they'll see, somebody drops their wallet. Hey, get that wallet. Pick that. Oh, my God, look at those credit cards. Oh, look at that cash. Now you're wealthy. Go ahead. Let's go buy some dinner. And they will counsel you to steal. They will counsel you to hurt. They will counsel you to rape. They will counsel you to do anything that you can do, that they can help you do, to corrupt the purity that you are becoming. And the Kundalini will allow this, because I'll tell you what, if you're able to have that level of corruption, you shouldn't have the Kundalini. And for those people that have the Kundalini and allow themselves to be corrupted, they are going into a very, very special live hell. Okay? You're going into a very, very current, provocative, difficult level of hell. Because those entities are just going to continue to corrupt you. That is their job now. They have found a Kundalini person that they can corrupt. And they will drive you to alcohol. They will drive you to drugs. They will drive you to do anything that they can have you do as their own special little marionette. And for those that don't understand French, a marionette is a puppet with strings attached. And those strings are attached to those entities. And so it's very important for you not to pay any attention to what these entities tell you to do. Do not believe them, even if what they say is true. You simply X them out of your conscious. You X them out. Nothing of what they say should matter to you anymore. You've been given answer to these entity issues right now. Do not listen to them. They are not twin flames. They are not anything that is going to help you in any way. They are a parasite and a manipulation upon you. And they are also a very, very strong test being given to you by the Kundalini. And that test is for you to stay pure, practice the safeties, be honest, be conscientious, be helpful, be loving, be forgiving, be tolerant. All of these things is where the Kundalini wants you to go. Everything that is opposite of that is where the entities will want you to go. So it's very important for you to understand that. Now let's see, looking at the chat room here, okay. And so I am going to go ahead and terminate this program, but I want everybody to know who's listening live right now, listen to the archives. If you want to hear it again, listen to the archives. It's there for you. It's there for you because John and Amelia O'Connor have provided it for you.
So we're not going to be here next week. So there's an opportunity to listen to the archive, guys. And tune in the same time next week. Press 1, choose a topic. Go and listen to that while we're in Peru. And hopefully, I think we'll have internet, so we will be on the following week, but we're not 100% sure. We'll let you know on the group if it's going to be possible the following week. Okay, see you then.
Okay, everybody. I want to thank Rosemary Goliath for being a guest on our program. I'd like to thank my co-host, Amelia Santara. I would like to thank Francine, who owns the ashram and who allows all of this to occur. And I would like to thank you, the listeners, for tuning in, and I'd like to thank those who are tuning into the archives in the future. Thank you, everyone, and probably won't be thinking too hard about anything other than Kundalini and ayahuasca for the next week. So I want you to be aware of that, but my thoughts and my love and my Kundalini reach out to you through this voice. They reach out to you right now in the archives or right now in this present time. The Kundalini is in the voice, and if you're hearing it, it's in you as well. Thank you, everyone.